Jewish community, like all of us in the West, is engaged in a bitter debate about Israel, Gaza, and this war. However, unlike for non-Jews, that debate is intensified by the historically resonant and poignant question of the meaning of Israel, the meaning of Zionism, and its relationship to Jewish history, community, and identity. There's nothing unique or new about that. That happens with all communities from time to time. And when the issues at stake go to the very heart of identity, the debates can be vicious and ugly. As we recognize that this debate is and will continue to be especially poignant for our Jewish friends, we, the 99.5% of Australians who are Gentiles, should give Jews the space to have it without butting in.
Last year, Professor Marsha Langton made waves when, like many establishment leaders in the First Nations community, she expressed the view that those inside the community who opposed the voice were essentially what Americans would call Uncle Toms.
Now these comments resurfaced from 2018 in the Saturday paper where she was speaking about Jacinta Price and her mother Bess, who was a prominent Northern Territory politician.
Which did not impress News Corp.
It's pretty shocking, but not unexpected.
Yet imagine how they'd felt if Professor Langton wasn't even a member of the community. Imagine calling someone an Uncle Tom if you're white, or accusing a trans person of being anti-trans when you yourself aren't trans.
Take a good look, kids. This is what happens when you eat your Wheaties every morning.
You might find that joke funny, you might find it tasteless, but can you imagine some white bloke deciding to tone police Ms. Jenner?
I didn't cut it off, I just retired it.
Imagine Andrew Bolt taking the time to publish a column in The Australian condemning Ms. Jenner for her anti-trans hate, claiming to have been offended on behalf of the trans community. The very idea is a punchline. Yet this is what many non-Jews did in the pages of papers like The Australian, including Professor Langton herself, who wrote this exact column accusing a young Jewish woman of being anti-Semitic. The reason was a comedy sketch by Sarah Schwartz, which had very little to do with Jews and was all about Peter Dutton.
I will not stop speaking about how Peter Dutton and the coalition are misusing and exploiting the rise in anti-Semitism, because I think that that is something that is fueling division and racism and anti-Semitism towards Jewish people.
What's worse, the characterization of Ms. Schwartz's comments were so divorced from the substance of her sketch, which anyone can watch online, by the way, that we suspect few people actually watched it. Instead, Ms. Schwartz was subjected to a torrent of abuse from non-Jewish Australians who had the chutzpah to tell a Jewish woman how to be Jewish, probably because they reacted to this single slide, taken out of context and characterized in a way that,
well, you can decide for yourself if you watch the video.
But what is unique about this debate right now for the Jewish community is the degree to which non-Jews, that's 99.6% of Australians, feel entitled to participate.
You called yourself loathing Jew, which I didn't know is something that Gentiles could throw around.
What do you mean self-hating Jew?
You are a Jew who is anti-Israel.
In the Senate of Australia, 2 Jewish women gave testimony to a Senate hearing on anti-Semitism and were treated to questions like this.
Why do you call yourselves the Jewish Council of Australia? I'll put it to you again. Don't refer to a single example in your submission.
Scar,
not a single
Senator
one.
Scar, I am going to conduct this inquiry and this hearing in a respectful way, given that the content we are talking about is ensuring the respect of students on campus. We're going to extend that respect to our witnesses.
No,
Senator.
I'm entitled to interrupt if the question's not been answered,
No,
Chair.
well, Senator Henderson, the witness is entitled to answer the question, and she's doing that.
Yes, I'm entitled to.
They're not one-word answers.
Thank you very much.
It was all like that. You'd think they were hostile witnesses at a corruption hearing.
I think that sums up this sort of organisation you are.
In the Senate of Australia, the chair of the committee hearing a bill on anti-Semitism had to remind 2 Australian senators of the need to show respect to 2 Jewish Australian women who were simply there to offer testimony on their response to a request from the Senate.
I'm not sure that this is entirely relevant to this inquiry.
And we've got to say, we think Ms. Schwartz was far more patient and polite than many people we know might have been in that same situation.
Has that been has that been a regular problem, being Jewish and being told that unless you are supportive of the state of Israel, which is obviously a foreign country, that you are anti-Semitic?
The way that we talk about anti-Semitism isn't about protecting Jews, it's about protecting Israel. How dangerous is that?
The only Jewish safety that's important is Zionist Jewish safety. So if you're an anti-Zionist Jew, you can get thrown to the ground. That literally happened to a professor in her 50s or 60s, I believe at University of Vermont, who was I think in the Department of Jewish Studies.
And as we've already said in 2 separate videos already, you can even have a brick thrown at your face, which bloodies it so much you wet yourself, and have a grown man, a fellow Jewish man, expert on radicalism no less, think it would be funny to make a public joke about it. When concern for Jewish safety and respect stops at friends and the people they care about, it's not concern for Jewish people. It's just self-interest.
Even if there was 2 Jews in Australia who opposed what was going on.
That's what's so strange about this family fight. The degree to which Gentiles feel entitled to participate. Education Minister Peter Clare declined the New South Wales Board of Deputies' call to condemn Ms. Schwartz. But he did something close enough. He told the Australian that Queensland University of Technology should enforce its policies. Now that's obviously true and anodyne. It's still disappointing because any competent politician would know this quote would be used to validate a charge that the minister clearly declined to make explicitly, which is exactly how it was used, to add the gravitas of a ministerial statement to the allegation, easily refuted by anyone who watched the video, that Ms. Schwartz hates herself and her tribe. It's always difficult to be an apostate, but it's especially difficult when the apostasy is over questions of great moral weight, as they are, of course, at this moment. When we think about what this tiny minority of Jewish Australians has endured to stand up for principle, and the cost in terms of a connection to personal family and community, there really is no excuse for someone outside this community to be complicit in their mistreatment, simply preserve a professional or business relationship, or even a personal friendship.
In Jewish tradition, there's a wonderful dynamic. There are truth tellers who say to the rulers and the people, what you're doing is wrong. Those people are called the prophets.
Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, salam, salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam.
In summary, for non-Jews, all this means 2 things. First, we should stay out of family fights, obviously. Second, and just as important, we are crazy if we think we're going to build cohesion in Australia by institutionalizing a definition of anti-Semitism that defines so many Australians, Jews and non-Jews alike, as enemies in the struggle against anti-Semitism at the very moment when that definition of anti-Semitism is one that Jewish leaders like Rabbi Hirsch and Abe Foxman say they can't make their own children believe.
It is incredibly powerful to see so many young people waking up, asking questions, young and old people.
The amazing thing is that it has long been an anti-Semitic trope to conflate Israel with Jews and to say if you oppose Israel, it means you're anti-Semitic, or all Jews have loyalty to Israel. And now this conflation has become the foundation for applying this anti-Semitism label to the protest movement.
We're crazy to do this. What we really need is to create the language and norms and frameworks for us to debate the questions that need debating, no matter how uncomfortable they may be. We need to do that now because it's not going to get easier in the future. And one way to start is by all of us making a better effort to be genuine and sincere.
Do you believe that the protest movement in a whole is doing that, is attacking the community, or do you understand the concerns of some of those protesters who've been...
I certainly understand people's concerns and also their right to protest, but I think it's morphed into something that's much more sinister.
Anti-Israel sentiment we've seen on the streets, which is becoming very quickly anti-Semitic and anti-Jewish as well.
The protests have morphed. How have they morphed? When did this happen? What protests has Mr. Sharma ever observed?
What protests has anyone in Mr. Sharma's bubble ever observed? What were the protests like before this morphing? And most importantly, why didn't Ms. Siegel, Senator Sharma, or anyone else saying that the protests have morphed, why didn't they speak up before this morphing and object to the way the protests were characterized then? As we said, this is a conversation that is moving ahead with or without any of us. So those of us who want to contribute constructively need to show more curiosity about fellow Australians. Doesn't matter how smart you are, how successful you are, or even how august you are. There is no substitute for curiosity, for asking sincere questions, and for finding things out. Without it, even the best and brightest among us can't help sometimes sounding like this.
Look at the Jewish protests and look at the Palestinian protests. When you look at the Jewish protests, you will see what's taking place. They're praying for the release of the captives. They're singing, they are praying for peace. Now look at the pro-Palestinian rallies.
Yitgadal, Yitgadal, Shemei Rabbah. May the great name.
And what do the Palestinians do? Whether it's 9/11 or 7th of October, they hand out lollies and they celebrate when people are hacked to death.
It's freedom and it's safety. All the kids all around the world.
So why are you here today?
I mean, obviously we all know there's an occupation going on.
I don't know. But that happens to be a fact. It's a reality.
I've never felt unsafe at these rallies, and I stand in solidarity with them that occupation is not a Jewish value.
Man's red flower, it's in every living thing. Mind, use your power. Spirit, use your wings. Freedom. Freedom. Freedom.